Welcome, everyone, to Collaborative Cancer Care's Chat and Chew educational session. My name is Dr. Wendy Garber-Mayo. I'm the founder and owner of Collaborative Cancer Care. I'm so excited that you are here. I just want to let you know that Chat and Chew is part of a larger community wellness ecosystem. We will be here every Tuesday at 12 o'clock to provide you education. So, with that, let's get started. Today, we're going to be talking about identity, cancer, and the big question, who am I now? I do want to let you know that if you are on here, or if you're watching the replay, please have your journal and a pen in place because with all of these sessions, I want you to take notes and we will be asking questions for you to think into. The purpose of the chat and choose are to really have you learn something, think into something, but more importantly, move you forward in your journey wherever you are. So today we're going to be talking about identity, cancer, and the big question, who am I now? As many of us know, a cancer diagnosis impacts your body, it invades your body, but it impacts so much more. And something we don't see is how it impacts our identity. Usually, before a cancer diagnosis, you know yourself as a person, a mom, a wife, a sister, a spouse, a niece, an uncle, a father. You can be all these things, but when a cancer diagnosis enters your life, your identity can change. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to explore the psychology of identity, why cancer can disrupt it, and how we can begin to reconnect with ourselves during after something as major as a cancer diagnosis. So let's start off by asking the question, what is identity? What do you think identity is? Identity is referred to the way we understand and define ourselves, the way we understand and define ourselves. So you are able to really identify yourself. And it's shaped by our roles as parent, spouse, as I was saying before, our values, our beliefs, our experiences. Experiences are really important to consider when we're talking about identity because our experiences stem back from childhood, not just who we are now, but all the things that happened in childhood impacts our identity now as an adult. Our relationships, our culture, our community, our goals, future aspirations. Identity answers questions such as, who am I? What matters to me? Where do I belong? What gives my life meaning? For many people, identity provides stability, direction, and purpose. And I want you to really think about that. What does your identity provide you with? Stability, direction, or purpose. I'm going to say and or purpose. And I don't think we think about our identity because we are just living our lives. But when a cancer diagnosis hit, we start to really think into, who am I now that you have cancer? Or you're a caregiver. So Eric Erickson, which everyone probably knows, he's a psychologist that's well known. He describes identity as a lifelong process of understanding who we are and how we fit in the world. And I love his definition of identity because it correlates to emotional intelligence. It's about having self-awareness of understanding who you are and how you fit in the world. So how you fit in the world with others, how you relate to others, right? So we always talk about when you have a cancer diagnosis, relationship shift, right? And those relationship shifts usually because identity shifts, right? Or how we think about ourselves shift. And identity is not fixed. It's fluid. It's not just one way. And I think as humans, because we're so used to being with ourselves, we think it's fixed, but identity is fluid. Throughout our lives, we experience transitions that require us to adapt. So, something as becoming a parent, changing a career, retirement, divorce, loss of a loved one, a serious illness like cancer. These experiences can really challenge our existing sense of self, how we see self with others, how we see ourselves showing up in the world. It creates a new understanding of who we are. One thing we talk to clients about here at Collaborative Cancer Care is think about how your identity will shift after a cancer diagnosis. How do you want that to shift? How do you want to shift the narrative of your identity? And giving you the space to do that. And when we don't create space for us to have that fluidity in identity, it can cause stress, it can cause anxiety. So, what happens when cancer enters the story? It's disruptive. It disrupts your life, it disrupts the life of your family, your friends, children. It can be very disruptive. And sometimes patients often describe it as I don't recognize myself anymore. And we know this is true when you can actually see the changes, whether you're losing hair, whether your skin's changing, your nails are changing. So we see that, but everything changed. Some people say, I don't know who I am outside of cancer. Cancer starts to define their identity, and people only see me as a patient, not a person. That was a powerful statement made by one of our speakers at the Oncolog Forum. They said they moved from a person to a patient, which was so powerful. And some caregivers say, I lost myself in caring for everyone else. You lose sense of what's important to me, what makes me whole. One caregiver said, "I my life revolves around appointments and treatments. Even though they're not the ones diagnosed with cancer, their lives also shift." And that's something in oncology that we have to do better at, is taking care of those caregivers who care for the patients. Another caregiver said, "I don't know who I am besides being a caregiver." So you lose yourself. And that's the caregiver, right? The patient also feels some sense of loss, and when we talk about that loss, I think of grief. We'll talk about a little later on in this presentation. But just think about that. These two individuals who know each other, and that could be a husband, a wife, it could be a child, a mom, a dad, but those two individuals who knew themselves as one person, a cancer diagnosis enters the picture and it shifts, but they still exist in the space. And how do we create the space where they shift and evolve together, right? Many times one person is shifting, and I don't want to let this person know, that person know, but just be aware that everyone is shifting. Everyone's identity is shifting. And cancer shifts multiple identities: your physical identity, your emotional identity, your social identity, your professional identity, relational identity, especially professional. Especially if you're working and you get a cancer diagnosis, that's a lot to take on. You're out of work, you're in work. Do you tell people? Do you not tell people? Physically, you're changing, and you're trying to work. It's a lot to deal with. And I want to just talk about identity dissonance. It's the conflict between selves. I talk about this a lot. If you have heard me speak anywhere or heard me in cafe conversations, but identity dissonance, it's a concept that emerged during cancer, where you might start to question, who are you now? Who were you before? And who do people expect you to be? And that can be a very daunting task to align those three identities, right? An example can be, I'm independent. I'm an independent person who now helps, who needs help, right? If you're independent, it can be hard to be dependent, to reach out for help, to ask for help, because you're still within the identity of I am a strong person. But we said that cancer can be disruptive and shift your identity, where you can be, I need help, and that's okay. Examples can be a caregiver who was once cared for. Now you're a caregiver. That's a shift in identity. A professional who can no longer work the same way. That's a shift in identity, right? Who you were, who you are now, but who people expect you to be. A survivor who looks healthy but still feels changed inside. That is a huge one. Our cancer survivorship population is expanding, which is a great thing because, in science, we're keeping people alive longer. But how are they living their lives? Do they have a good quality of life? Do they understand who they are now after a cancer diagnosis, after treatment? These conflicts in identity can cause stress, can cause anxiety, grief, frustration, even isolation. You may just retreat and not want to be out in the world with people. And it can also impact your confidence, not feeling confident in who you are, but more importantly, what you have to offer the world. I'm a true believer that it doesn't matter where you are in life, you have a gift to share with the world. And sometimes when we are bogged down with stress and anxiety, we lose track of that and we lose our confidence. And I want to talk about the grief that no one talks about. Many people think about grief as death, but we like to talk about grief in terms of loss, loss of your identity, who you thought you were, who you were showing up as, the future you expected, physical abilities, not able to do things that you used to do, relationship shift. And, we talked about this before that when you have a cancer diagnosis, people leave. They leave the patient, they leave the caregiver because your life changes. Loss of independence, loss of confidence, loss of productivity. So you can't really predict your life because now your life evolves around appointments and scans and treatments and all these other things. You feel a loss of control. Sometimes people are grieving just the version of themselves they thought they would be or always be. We all have these visions in our heads of, I'm going to be this, I'm going to do this. But then when you have a cancer diagnosis, whether you're a patient or caregiver, that change. And this is a normal response to change. It is normal. Now, caregivers also experience identity shifts, as we talked about before. Caregivers often experience identity shifts that receive less attention because usually in the medical field, we focus on the patient. But we have to really create space for the caregiver because many caregivers become advocates, become schedulers, becomes, transportation coordinators, right? Medication managers, their emotional support for their loved ones. So they become these individuals without any training. So it's a lot of stress. So over time, their personal needs become secondary while they're a caregiver, and the caregiver role becomes dominant, and the individuals lose contact or even connection with the things they loved or the things that made them who they knew themselves to be. So they lose connection with friends, with their career goals, with their hobbies, with their, personal wellness, things they used to do. They can't really do anymore because their schedule shifts, because their loved one has cancer and they need to be there. So the question becomes, who am I beyond the caregiver or beyond providing caregiving duties? And sometimes you get so caught up in the doing that you don't even allow time to get up and say, who am I now? Or more importantly, who do I want to be? How do I want to show up now? So here are some signs that you may be experiencing identity shift. If you notice you're feeling disconnected from yourself, if you're just sitting with yourself and you're feeling a little disconnected, you're feeling like your old life is gone, you're having difficulty with recognizing yourself, even in your abilities or the way you may look, you have a loss of purpose, changes in your confidence, you feel misunderstood, you're worrying or wondering what comes next. After all of this, what happens? And you're struggling to envision your future. What does my future look like now? So let's talk about rebuilding identity after cancer. The goal is not to become the person you were before, but remember, we said identity is not fixed. So it's about being open to the possibilities of who you can become. The goal is to discover, who are you now? Who do you want to show up as now? How do you want to contribute to the world now? How do you want to contribute to life now? What part of you remained unchanged? We don't usually talk about that. We don't usually talk about what cancer can't take or can't change. And some things that can't change is your compassion, your values, your faith, your creativity, your resilience. What have you learned about yourself through the journey? Did you realize that you're stronger than people thought you were? That you need support, that relationships do matter more than you thought they did. You want to live differently. This is a big one. Many patients who have a diagnosis of cancer realize that they want to live their lives differently. But how do you do that? It's like you have the what, but the how. How do you make the transition? And I want you to think about what parts of your life do you want to reclaim? What parts of your life do you want to reclaim? What parts of your life do you feel have changed, shifted, drift away that you want to reclaim? Is it joy? Is it confidence? Is it purpose? Is it connection? Is it curiosity? Is it a hobby? What is it that you want to reclaim? And I would like you to write that down. What part of your life do you want to reclaim? And then think about what new parts of your life are emerging. What's emerging? Are you now an advocate? Are you a mentor to someone else? Are you a community builder or leader? Are you a healer? Many times you have a story and you're telling people the story, and that story is so powerful that it's helping others. So you become a mentor. But what's emerging for you that you may not even realize that's emerging? So a lot of the things we're talking about with identity connects to the three foundations that we hone in on here at Collaborative Cancer Care. And that's the Winwell framework, and that's capacity, safety, and connection. So capacity is, do I have the emotional, physical, or mental energy to show up as the person I want to be? Do you have the capacity to do that? Sometimes that capacity is reduced by the anxiety, by the depression, by the stress of everything. The second one is safety. Do you feel safe enough to express who you're becoming? So being in an environment where you can show up as your authentic self and not feel judged, you can take the mask off. So whether it's in community or it's at home or it's with a friend, because the identity is evolving, but it's not going to evolve unless you feel safe. You feel a sense of safety. And then connection. Are you connected to people who see beyond the diagnosis or the caregiving role? Or are you surrounded by people and individuals who see you how they saw you before? They don't give you permission or space to evolve. When identity shifts happen, strengthening capacity, safety, and connection helps create the space for growth and healing. I'll say that again. When identity shifts, strengthening capacity, safety, and connection helps create space for growth and healing. And I want to wrap it up a little bit with some reflection questions. So please have your journals and your pens out, and I want you to think into some of these questions. How has cancer changed the way you see yourself? What role or identity have you lost, gained, or changed? What part of yourself do you miss the most? What strengths have emerged through this experience? And there's a lot of strengths. However, we don't focus on them. But there's a lot of strength in allowing yourself to go through the journey, be part of the journey. But what strengths have emerged? And my favorite question that I really want you to put some thought into is, who are you becoming now? Who are you becoming now? Cancer can change your story, but it does not erase your identity, because identity is fluid, not fixed. That's really the take-home message. It's fluid, not fixed. But how do you float through the different identities? And I want you to know that you are more than your diagnosis. You're more than a caregiver, and you're more than what happens to you. Identity is not something you lose forever. It's something that continuously evolves and it's refined. But we have to reclaim our identity. So with that, I thank you for your time. If you have any questions, put them in the chat. We leave a couple of minutes for questions. And this video recording will be up in our community. So if you're not part of the Windwell community, please join us so you can rewatch the video, ask questions, and have a community where you can have the space to connect. It's safe, and we help you build capacity. So with that, I'll take any questions. If you have any questions in the chat, we will take questions now.